Is this thing on? Hello?
Welcome to the Elephant Wire podcast.
We're doing an interview.
Music, drugs, laughter, lyrics.
Hey.
Hey,
Hello.
greetings. Hi,
Welcome to the Elephant Wire podcast.
thank you.
it's,
Nice to meet you.
it's good to have you. How are you doing?
Good. It's like nighttime here, so
For
most
sure,
of the
yeah.
stuff all good. How's it
Yeah,
going over there?
Go ahead.
How's it going over there? You've been partying all week?
I have, yeah. It was a big week. Got down with some friends just as far as season one, and then I had a birthday, so I've been going at it for a while
Sweet.
now. So I'm drinking.
Super cool. Hey, sorry if my audio quality is not so great though.
No worries. We can hear you just fine. Yeah. As long as you can hear us.
For
Awesome.
sure.
Well, it's good to have you on. Welcome to the podcast. I wanted to start out. I just wanted to give you an opportunity to kind of introduce yourself, maybe just kind of like a brief overview, maybe how you got into music and things like that.
Cool. Okay. So I am Shehara Herself. I have been in the music industry for about 11 years now. I started off as a solo artist, and I released a few singles, took part in a few talent competitions, but the main goal was to always have a band and make metal music basically. So I released a few singles, collaborated with artists, and then recorded my album, which took about 4 years. That didn't work out. So my husband and I, who wrote the album, we recorded the album all over again. In the meantime, I had 2 kids. We got married. We had 2 kids. And then we released the album, which is an 8-track all originals album called Fountain of Memory in 2019. And that became Sri Lanka's first metal album by a female. So
Awesome.
Right? So since then, the band and I have been together. We've been playing gigs, recording music videos, and writing new music. So that has been it so far for the last 11 years.
Awesome. So you said that about like right at the beginning. One thing I wanted to ask you for a really long time was the TNL on stage. That was pretty early in your music career. I wanted to ask you just about that experience. I had a friend here in the US that went on The Voice. And I'm not as familiar with TNL on stage, but I kind of wanted to ask you about as far as like your experience with that, how that went.
TNL on stage isn't as huge as The Voice. We have The Voice now here as well, but it was one of the main talent competitions that actually gave a good platform for artists here, right? Because we had everyone from solo artists from any genre to bands performing, and most of the bands were rock bands and metal bands, and that's how most of them started out.
Okay.
It was held by a radio station called TNL then. Now it's called TNL now. But they are the main the main radio station that actually promoted rock and heavy metal in Sri Lanka. So they would actually play metal music on radio, which we don't have anymore here. And I know, right? And like when I was in school, TNL on stage was like the talent competition I actually wanted to take part in. But obviously, because I was in a convent, we weren't allowed to take part in extracurricular activities. So I had to wait until school was over. And right after my A-levels, I just jumped at that, and that's how that happened. Became a finalist and recorded my first single. That became a hit, and yeah.
Awesome. So, I mean, I actually, there were a couple of friends of mine, a couple other metalhead guys that I know, a couple of weeks ago when I was telling them about the interview with you coming up. I mentioned something about, you being the queen of metal in Sri Lanka, and they were like, dude, the metal scene there is insane. So I wanted to ask you about that as well. Like, it seems as if there's definitely a metal and hardcore culture, which here it's not, there's definitely, you can tell the metal kids, and they stick to themselves. And then there's
Really?
all the other genres, you know. So I wanted to ask you, you know, how is the metal scene in Sri Lanka?
For me, I'm surrounded by metalheads, so I don't really see it that way. Like
Inside
it's
looking
good to
out,
see
right?
it from an outside. It's good to see it from an outside perspective. Oh my gosh, did we look that way? um, but I think, I mean, yeah, we all have different genres in music, but the metal scene is very strong. Like we have bands that are as old as 21 years. Like my husband's in a band that's 21 years old this year.
Oh wow, okay.
And we have had, yeah, we have had like so many bands, and the new ones are just absolutely amazing. There's like a huge variety in music now, variety in subgenres.
Hmm.
Because I think with like the introduction of the internet and all of that, and everybody having like more access to metal,
Yeah.
and more like, with more equipment, just the exposure to other genres, we have like developed so much. Like I've seen that in the last 10 years, especially. Like we have more producers in metal now, so our sounds are getting so much better, right?
Yeah.
We have bands experimenting with so many different sounds to, you know, tech. So it's really changing, it's improving, and we have so many young bands coming up. It's just a very amazing entire scene. We're all growing, and there are more gigs coming up where we have people who are, you know, affiliated with Bengal Open Air and Wakan Open Air. So things are happening that way. It's really growing. There's a lot happening here.
Awesome. And yeah, I wanted to once again thank you. Whenever we highlighted you on an episode, the amount of posting that you did and the amount of social media work that you did for the Elephant Wire podcast. Once again, I just want to say thank you. That was insane. Like we literally we charted in Sri Lanka for like 4 days just from you
Oh my
posting. Yeah,
god,
it was
that's
awesome.
awesome.
But you know, kind of what you were talking about there, as far as like exposure for metal bands and like the way quality is going up. How much of that do you think has to do with social media? And as far as just like bands being able to get more exposure.
I think it's pretty huge because like for me personally, when I had my album launch, I did approach local newspapers, TV stations, radio stations. But I think the closest way and the best way to connect with fans and audiences is right now online, because everybody's on their phones, right? It's like instant access. And
Yep.
I mean, yeah, maybe we don't make direct contact with like the biggest audience, but I think the people who actually find us and come and connect are the most genuine and loyal following. That's exactly what metal is. So it's,
Yeah,
I think it makes
exactly.
a huge difference.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I also wanted to bring up, as far as, you know, a lot of times what bands have so much trouble with social media wise is they don't really find their, like maybe their style or maybe their specific artwork or something like that, which is somewhere where I feel like you're probably ahead of the curve, you doing like graphic design.
Yeah.
So my question more so is that, you know, the music video that you just released, how much of that is like someone coming in and saying, here's my artistic design, or more so you saying, here's how I want things to look, you know, because this is my brand, this is who I am in my music, you know, how much of that from each angle is coming at it?
For the last 11 years, it's been mostly me designing the way I really like it to be. So like everything from my website to the logo, the promo artwork, to, you know, just the basic stuff that I post. It's all been what exactly I feel like I love. But I'm happy to say that like most of the photo shoots, they have been collaborative efforts between photographers and I, and like they have kind of come in and said, "This is your field." Like they all know I love nature. They all know I love space. So, I mean, it's all about communicating it, right? So,
Sure.
like if you look back to my first photo shoot with like, you know, nature and green hair and everything, that just happened because I had green hair. The photographer is a very good friend. She knew what I liked, so that worked out. Um, I mean, since of late though, like the new music video, it was all me saying, "This is how I want it to be." I
Fair
kind of
enough.
pitched all the crazy ideas to the guy who filmed it, Shamim Ismail. And like we had a video con, and I when I was basically telling him the ideas, he was like, "What? You want to do this?" But like, I have amazing family members and band guys, so they were all like, you know what? None of them said, "Okay, this can't be done." They all were willing to try it out, so I'm really happy that way. But for the editing of the video, I'm happy to say that the drummer stepped in this time, and he's the one that edited like the majority of the video. So
Okay, cool.
even though I had the storyboard set, he put in a lot of ideas, and when it comes to like color grading, effects, and all of that, so that worked out fascinating.
Awesome. So it sounds like a good majority of your band, like your husband and your drummer, it sounds like a good majority of your band, you guys are all able to actually not just bring the instruments and the music the music to that side of things, but you're also able to bring the creative side to things, as far as
I'm
like
lucky there because all three of us, like the drummer, my husband, and I, all of us are graphic designers, video editors. So it worked out really well that way.
That definitely works out. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So one question I wanted to ask you as well. I was doing some research just on Sri Lanka. Pretty much anything that I'd known, I just learned off of maybe like Travel Channel or Food Network. So just like very, very, overview kind of things. But I was looking up some different facts from Sri Lanka. And one of the most interesting ones I found was that Sri Lanka has a literacy rate of 92%, which is, it's got to be way higher than the US. So I wanted to ask, as far as like, how does that translate as far as like your communities? As far as, I mean, I see you all the time reading to your kids on Instagram, or, like doing educational things like that. So as far as Sri Lanka as a whole, I mean, like in your social structure, I mean, having, education being a right, how much does that translate for you guys?
That's pretty crazy, right? It's a huge rate.
Yeah,
Um,
I love it.
it I mean, look at it, right? Like it just means that all of our people can read and understand what they're reading at some level, even if they don't have access to the internet or like computers. Even if they can't understand using a smartphone, which I highly doubt, because I see everyone from the tuk-tuk drivers to like the small vegetable shop owners with like smartphones, and they're doing their thing. But like I'm saying, even in rural areas, even if they are not able to, be tech savvy, they can read and understand any form of literature. So that's just crazy. That's just awesome, because like when we have we have midwives coming to like homes when we have when there are pregnant ladies, right? And they come by and they give us like leaflets, and that helps the pregnant lady take care of herself better, take care of the baby better. And then the second we give birth, the hospitals and all the midwives give us like these books with like certain levels of development we need to look into if a child at different levels of different ages. So that kind of gives us a guide to understand what kind of things our kids need to be doing at that certain level, right?
Yeah.
And like it also helps us like figure out if there is a setback or there's like an impairment in development, then we can voice it out to the doctors. So stuff like that too, in rural areas, if there's like cultivation areas, then we have people giving out leaflets there, telling the farmers how to like do things differently, how to grow their crops, how to, grow their crops in a certain way to not like set snares for leopards and stuff like that. So it works out right around. And I think even in, like, if I'm not mistaken, I think the literacy, like the basic level of education that we need for like bus drivers and tuk drivers is something like grade 8, right? Or year 9, grade 8. So like our schools are basically in Tamil medium, English medium, and Sinhala medium. So even if we're in the English medium, we learn the mother tongue, which is Sinhalese. Which means that like at any given point, our kids have access to public libraries. They have like access to print material in Sinhalese. If they want to, develop their reading and writing, we have access to public libraries and like any form of literature. So, I mean, look at it, right? We are capable of reading and understanding and learning at whatever level. So, I think it's a great way. We should be blessed that way. I mean, we are blessed. We should be thankful.
That's awesome. That's absolutely awesome. Because I mean, like, it's one of the biggest things. My wife and I, when we went on our honeymoon, we went to Costa Rica. And Costa Rica is very similar. They have a very high literacy rate. Their population is incredibly educated from like starting at a very young age all the way through. And like you were saying, some people might not have access to like the most tech savvy things, but at the same time, everyone is willing to learn and eager to learn. And I think that makes a giant difference in the culture of people as far as being willing to change, being willing to, like you were saying, farmers maybe in more rural areas, they might not have an iPhone, but because of the way the education system is, they're more apt to accept, maybe new scientific research about, new ways of farming and things like that. I think that's absolutely awesome. That has to be
And I
huge.
think like, I'm so thankful that we have that level of understanding to like be able to learn irrespective of genre. Irrespective of like gender, race, anything. Like
Hmm.
anyone can learn, so that's a good thing, right?
I love that. I love that. My wife is in grad school right now, and she's writing a paper on social justice for one of her classes, and she's
Nice.
doing it on an LGBTQ community as far as their access to healthcare. And I've helped her proofread it a couple times as far as like coming from my very layman standpoint. And it's been awesome, like just little things like that, picking up on like who's been turning down healthcare just based on
Really?
it's unbelievable. It's absolutely unbelievable, and it breaks my heart because there's no reason that everyone should not have the same opportunities. It's so crazy to me, but
It's,
yeah.
that's nuts.
But I wanted to ask you a couple fun questions. In that same research that I was doing about Sri Lanka, I was reading about a few of the festivals that you guys have, and in the research that I was doing, I found the Festival of the Tooth, which sounds very interesting. Because most of my teeth are fake. I've, through different, whatever it may be. I always say that my teeth cost more than my car. So I wanted to ask you, is these festivals, are they very, obviously there's probably ones that are more like countrywide, but then as far as like in your specific areas, I mean, how do these festivals, are they very music related? Are they more so just community wide?
Um, we have like a few religious festivals, cultural festivals that happen every year.
Okay.
And in terms of like we have the Hikkaru festival. I'm not too sure if you've heard of that, but that's like the party that happens every year. We have the
Okay.
Akman festival that happens. But in terms of music, like we used to have Rock Saturday a long time ago, but that kind of stopped. It was a recurring gig that happened every week, but that kind of stopped with Rock Company closing down.
Okay.
So after that, it was just all the bands organizing their own gigs, and we had like over the years we've had like Mosh Cream Rock, we've had Stigmata organizing their own gigs, we've had and now recently like we have more recurring gigs. They're not huge festivals, but they're like club gigs, they're weekly
Okay.
gigs or something like that. So like I have only known, to be honest, about two huge music festivals that happened here. I'm not too sure what the situation is like now, especially after COVID.
Right.
But we had like the Colombo Music Festival that happened, which extended to Goa Music Festival and Jaffna Music Festival. So that went out really well, where we had like a heap of artists from different genres taking part, and they like segregated each genre so that all the fans
Okay.
could come in and buy tickets and enter the festival. So that was superb. And then we also had the Fetala Music, which is organized by the Alliance Francaise in Sri Lanka. I'm not too sure what's happening with all of those as well right now, so it's interesting to know. But what I do know right now is that the Surya brothers are organizing like recurring shows every week, and there'll be like more bigger gigs soon. So that's it. That's the only thing that's happening now. I think with COVID, everything just went for a six.
Right. Yeah. Well, and that was actually the next question that I was going to get to was once COVID happened, how much did it affect? Definitely, I mean, more so the music scene, and how have music venues been able to have the music venues been able to survive? I mean, I know there's been a really big push here in the U.S. of save the music venues. Have
Yeah.
you seen anything like that there as well?
We all had to go into lockdown. So
Yeah.
the second we did come out of it, there were bands that had open mics. There were bands that had the regular club gigs, but very little for original music artists or musicians who make original music, because it would be like club gigs where they would perform for like 5 to 6 hours enter the place and stuff. But I think we have really strict regulations now. It went from 250 people to 50 people all of a sudden because the new strain of COVID was going about.
Right.
So like there's a high and then everyone's planning gigs and all of a sudden there's a drop because the new strain's out and so it's an up and down situation. But there are pubs and clubs that are actually having little gigs, but it's not to a level yet where we're completely safe, unfortunately.
Sure. Yeah. And we're, it's funny. My wife and I were even just talking about this last night. As much as it feels like we're kind of seeing a light at the end of the tunnel, it feels like we're maybe coming out of it. We still feel like we're just so far away to being back. One of the big things, one of my good friends here, he was talking about, he can't wait till music venues and live music are at 50% because that's the perfect show to him. He has plenty of room. Where I can't wait to just get back in the pit with the kids and just and mosh. Like I want 100%. I want to be in the pit. So his light at the end of the tunnel.
Here, dude. I miss it so much. It's
I know.
Horrible. But I mean, okay. So the good news is that we have the vaccine here now. So like.
Awesome. Okay.
Like recede and venues open up properly, we're able to have big, large scale gigs once the vaccine's totally out there. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, right. My wife got hers last month. I'm scheduled to get mine at the end of March. So hopefully, I mean, we'll see. I mean, I'm on a list of a couple million people, so we'll see whenever my name gets called. But but I can't wait because literally it's live music. I'll wear a mask to the grocery store for the next 10 years if I can see live music like that. But let's go back to your music for a second. One of the last main questions I wanted to ask you was, so your video that you just released for Fidelity. I wanted to ask you more about the writing process of that song. And maybe even just your writing process in general. I wanted to ask you, songwriters tend to be all over the place as far as what comes first, where they go from there, do they backtrack? And by that I mean, do you tend to start with lyrics and go music next? Do you tend to start with maybe an idea as far as a guitar riff or something like that and kind of add in lyrics later? I kind of wanted to get an idea of your process and how you go about it. Obviously the music video came last, but
yeah. but I mean, here's the thing, some of the music videos are simultaneously while I'm writing the lyrics. So I start off with lyrics and melody. I write the lyrics with the melody in the head. So after that, it's singing it to somebody who can play the music. And so far, it's been my husband. Now it's the new band. So yeah, while I write the lyrics, it's the melody. And then sometimes I have envisioned what the video is going to look like as well. Because what I'm writing is just sort of like a therapeutic process for me. Whatever I'm going through, whatever I need to kind of get over, I'm just writing down. With very basic guitar riffs or breakdowns, and obviously with the melody I come up with what kind of vocal style I'm going to use. Either am I going to growl it, am I going to sing it? So all of that comes in while I'm writing the lyrics.
Okay, cool. So it's kind of like a hybrid, like a mix of both. Which honestly, it's funny, I was always more so in my early writing days. I would have notebooks of lyrics, notebooks and notebooks and notebooks of lyrics, and then I'd have to go back later and try to put music to them. When maybe when I wrote it 6 months ago, I had a melody idea in my head, but by the time I get back to it, I have no idea what that original idea was.
Oh no.
Yeah. So it's definitely more so as far as for the flow of being able to write a song, the way you're going about it. I've definitely found that absolutely makes the most sense as far as writing one song at a time and kind of working through that one. And then that was kind of the follow-up. You kind of addressed it as far as your band, how much they have to do with the songwriting process as well.
With the second album, all of them have, they're all contributing towards the writing process. So we started writing one song, I've sung it to them, I've growled it to them, and I've told them the arrangement of my vocal style and the vocal melody and all of that, and like which verse goes here and there, and then they've kind of made the guitars and the drums to it. We're all kind of collaborating together this time. It's a new experience for me because this is the first time all of the musicians are collaborating together and putting in their ideas, right?
Right.
So I mean, it's fun because like everybody is influenced by different subgenres, but like the majority of us are like into heavier.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
heavy music. So that's a good thing.
It is funny how, metalheads are always, they're very specific on their genres. The like what genre, what vein of metal music. However, we can all agree on, Slayer. We can all agree on we all have the ones like, okay, we all listen to those ones. That's absolutely great. But that is funny. So when you were putting together your band, were they guys that were in the scene that were already in bands, or how did you kind of piece together your band?
The rhythm guitarist is my brother. He
Okay.
lives in the same house I live in, so that makes life a lot easier. Um, my drummer and bassist were already in a band, and drums and bass need to gel together, right? And so I'm so happy that they were in the same band together. They're in the same band, and the band is Meningitis. So they play brutal death metal, and my lead guitarist.
Brutal death metal. I love it. I love it.
And my lead guitarist was also produced on the album. And he also played the guitar solos on 2 songs. So we've known each other for many years, and it all just kind of fell into place. Yeah.
Okay. Right on. Right on. Well, I guess the last question I would have, as far as like in your writing process, on your new album that you've been working on, what are some lyrics that you are probably most proud of? And I mean that in the sense more like you said. I mean, your writing process is therapeutic. It's a release. And so, can you pinpoint any lyrics maybe on your newer songs that you've written where you didn't even know that you needed to write that until you were in the midst of writing it and realized, oh my God, I needed to get that out? Is there anything that kind of sticks out in your mind?
You mean in the newer ones I haven't released yet?
Yeah, absolutely. Something that we would be looking forward to. Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, I mean, there's a lot. Like when I'm singing it now, it's still therapeutic. Let's see.
Yeah,
Give me a minute.
I will give you as long as you need, because we can even circle back. We can even
Yeah, we
circle
can.
back.
Give me a second.
Then,
I have it right here.
there we go. The notebook. I knew you had a notebook.
This is with me everywhere I go. Okay,
Mhm.
okay. Okay, so for the longest time, like I still do. I have issues with anger, right?
Mhm.
And being a mom, sometimes also it's very challenging to kind of like suppress that, or like uh, not take it out on other people. So
Sure.
like there's a new song where I'm saying it's my anger and rage. Acceptance at every stage is frightening. Like to be able to accept the fact that I have anger issues is sometimes frightening.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah.
but facing it is important. So I mean that's there, and it's like there's an entire song. I will share it with you soon.
You don't have to give us too many
It's not I
spoilers.
need to finalize.
No spoilers.
Not
You don't have to.
Not finalized yet.
But I love that though. I mean, that's something. I mean, I've always been on the side. I love when lyrics are vulnerable, and I feel like that's when lyrics can speak the most to people. And there's definitely a place for songs where lyrics are just goofy, and or the lyrics really have no sense to them. However, the majority of the songs, I mean, for fuck's sake, I started a podcast based on music lyrics. I mean, obviously, I love lyrics, and whenever lyrics become vulnerable like that, whenever you when as the writers, when you acknowledge something like that, like you said, I mean, just the acknowledgement of the issue to begin with. I mean, that is frightening at times. That's awesome. I love that. Very excited to hear that song when it's done.
Thank you.
Very excited. Um, one of the last questions I had for you was, you brought up a couple times when in your writing process, as far as will you be singing, will you be growling? At what age did you find out that you could growl?
Well, I always wanted to, but I only started experimenting after I got pregnant with my first son. And that was just about the time the first album recording went down the drain as well.
Uh-huh.
So like we took 4 years to record the first version of the album. It was mixed and mastered, but then something happened and the producer deleted it. Boom, gone. So I had to kind of get over it. And it was a lot of anger as well, unresolved anger there. And
So
I
much
thought,
hard
you know
work.
what? Yeah, it was. But I mean, just the newer one is like so much better. I actually growled on it, so I'm like super happy, and it sounded so much better. But I mean, I think in a way, it took that experience for me to kind of come out of my shell and be like, you know what, this is something I always wanted to do. This is how I feel when I'm singing. This is exactly how I want it to be. So I started practicing, started experimenting with extreme vocals, and I think, and I'm gonna thank my eldest son for this. That when I got pregnant, like the diaphragm kind of expanded as well, and that kind of helped me.
Okay, interesting.
So, win-win.
I love that. So, I mean, how do your sons feel about it? Like when they hear your music, as far as when you're growling? I mean, what's their take on that? Do they know it's you? Do they
Yeah.
love it? Awesome.
They know my music. They love it. Like even my nephews and my nieces love it. So I'm just like, yes. It's so good.
That's
Like
funny.
if I put on heavy metal, that's like the thing that they're headbanging into and like jumping on the bed for. So
That is awesome. My wife and I's best friends, their daughter Juniper is a year old, and I showed her first Slayer music video. She was
oh,
maybe 6, 7 months old, and she was just in her high chair, just like she didn't even know
nah.
what to do with herself, but loving it. Absolutely, I had to change it real quick before her parents came back in the room, but yeah, it
I
was
think
awesome.
they understand heavy metal more than
Exactly.
it's so good.
I love it. I love it. Well, Shihara, it was fantastic to have you on the podcast. I've been looking forward to this for so long. For anyone that doesn't know, very before we even recorded the first episode, I came in contact with Shihara, and she has been a huge supporter of us the whole way through. So thank you so much for everything you've done for us, all the kind words, and it's been incredible to meet you and become friends with you. And I cannot wait to watch your music career as it just continues. Um, we're gonna have to get you over to the U.S. You have a friend, you have a cousin here in Colorado.
I do. I have one cousin in Colorado. The rest of most of my family is in Canada. So my best friends
Love Canada.
are kind of all over the place in US. So yeah.
Awesome, awesome. Well, yeah, we're gonna have to get you. We're gonna have to get you out here to Colorado for a show. I got some
Thanks.
other I got some other metalhead dudes. Angelic Desolation. I met them through the podcast as well. They're always doing their razor grind would
Yeah.
be their yeah is their genre. But yeah,
Holy
I
snap.
can't wait to actually one day we will finally meet, and I'll meet the band and
Yes.
I'll meet your children, and it'll be fantastic. But
Yes.
Shihara,
It will
it
be
was so
awesome.
great to have you on the podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.